So what inspired you to become a marine biologist, and how is it the same or different than what you had imagined?
Yeah, so growing up, I guess the consistent thing I always knew I wanted to do was to work with animals in some way. I always thought maybe I would be like some kind of large animal veterinarian, or after seeing Free Willy, I thought maybe I would be an orca trainer. When I went to college, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, other than the fact that I wanted to do something good for the world and I didn't want to be behind a desk. So that led me to majoring in environmental science. And even though I'd always kind of leaned towards marine science, I hadn't really set that as my goal even after graduating college. It actually wasn't until I got scuba certified that I was like, I definitely want to study the marine world. After graduating college, I moved to Costa Rica and worked on a sea turtle nesting beach down in the Osa Peninsula of Costa Rica. And when I came back to the States, honestly, I was just looking for any job in particular, but since I had sea turtle experience, I was applying for some jobs on sea turtle nesting beaches, and I actually ended up getting two, one in Texas and one in Florida, and ended up choosing to come down to Florida and work with Biological Associates.
I didn't realize you had spent time in Costa Rica. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was really great. It definitely cemented more for me that I wanted to always try to involve travel in my work, and I really like working in remote places. It brings its own set of challenges, but it's also very interesting.
Yeah, I could see that. You came back to Florida, and then that's when you kind of got your master's while you were...
So it wasn't as direct a route to getting my master's degree. I spent probably 3 years working in the summers on the turtle nesting beaches in Florida, and then in the winters I would go work on a project in a different country. So I did that for 3 years, and then once I realized I couldn't get the types of jobs that I really wanted to without a higher degree is when I decided to go back to graduate school.
That makes sense. What are some of the other jobs that you were doing?
So I did another sea turtle research assistant position in Ghana in West Africa. Involved tagging turtles at night and researching mostly the olive ridleys. And then I also ended up working at a dive shop in Honduras and getting my professional dive certification.
What was your thesis on in college then?
So graduate school, my experience might have been a little different than typical graduate student experience. My original thesis was looking at when during development do sea turtles imprint on the Earth's magnetic field. So this involves manipulating the magnetic field around turtle nests and then testing the hatchling sea turtles for their navigational or orientation abilities. I did this experiment for 2 years, staying up all night in the lab and watching turtles swim around in circles in the dark. And basically that didn't yield any conclusive results. The things I really wanted to, when I went out into graduate school, I had some very clear goals. And these goals were, I wanted to present at a scientific conference and publish a scientific paper. And after talking with my committee and going over my experimental results, they didn't feel like these results would be worthy of that. So in my last semester of graduate school, I ended up completely changing my entire thesis and using some data that was already collected and doing a thesis on how the body proportions of young sea turtles change through development and how that might be related to their ecology and evolutionary pressures.
What'd you find?
Basically that we were comparing the hard-shelled turtles, the green and loggerhead turtles, to the leatherback turtles. We basically found that leatherback turtles are developing this deeper body plan. That's probably related to the fact that they're going to become deeper divers and they have to prepare their bodies to handle colder waters when they're older. The loggerheads and green turtles are developing body plans that are likely more suited for predation defense, since they're a lot smaller than the leatherbacks. The leatherbacks are probably outsizing the predators a lot faster than the hard-shelled turtles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but my advisor is actually still, 6 years later, still doing those magnetic experiments that I began. And I think he pretty much has very similar results to what I've got.
Yeah, I was going to say That didn't sound like a couple-year master's thesis. That sounded like a really long, in-depth study.
The problem with it was it's difficult to do because when you're working on an endangered species, obviously my sample size was very limited to what I could get a permit for. And since there's only a certain season for hatchlings, you can't work on it all year round. You can only work on it during a specific time of year. My sample size was always very small, and I had very little room for error. So my first season, I had a hurricane come through, which already knocked down my already really small sample size. I don't know, they're interesting experiments, but it's something to think about for people who are going to grad school is you need to think about something that you can actually for sure get data from, because doing field work, it is not always guaranteed.
Nature does her own thing sometimes. Most of the time, actually. Are you dive instructor? What's your level of certification?
I'm a dive instructor. Yeah, well, I actually had never planned on becoming a dive instructor. That was actually like a plan C for me. If the biology career didn't work out, I thought I could always go get my dive instructor certification and at least live somewhere cool. But after graduate school, I got a job teaching marine biology on a sailboat to college students, and that job actually wanted me to be a dive instructor, so they paid for me to get that certification.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the ideal setting. Like, we're going to learn about this, and now we're going to go dive and see that. Where did you go with the sailboat?
So that company, it's called Seamaster, has two sailboats. One that sails around the Caribbean. They basically do a loop from the British Virgin Islands to Grenada and back, all the islands in between. And the other sailboat sails around the world, just works its way around the world every couple years. But I was mostly in the Caribbean for that job, which is it's really fun to teach marine biology. And then you're experiencing marine biology every day, from even like what you're looking at when you're sailing to when you're diving. It's a really fun way to teach.
It's awesome. And that's a position that your master's degree like afforded you to have, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in grad school, in order to get a stipend and tuition waivers, I was a teaching assistant. And honestly, that was the thing I was not looking forward to about grad school. I was really nervous about it. I was dreading it. And it actually turned out to be one of my favorite things about grad school. I really loved teaching. Even though I was teaching anatomy, something I honestly didn't know that much about going into it. So I learned while teaching. I found that I really love teaching students and interacting with them and helping figure out ways to explain things and get your students to understand. And it's even more fun when you're teaching something that you're really passionate about. So when I left grad school, I was open to teaching positions, and I happened to get one that involved teaching and being able to travel and dive and kind of combine a lot of the things I was interested in into one job.
It's pretty awesome. What is the coolest project that you've worked on?
I mean, not to brag, but the one I just started is my favorite.
That's good. So tell us a little bit more about that then.
To go rewind maybe 7 or 8 years when I was first doing those sea turtle jobs in Florida when I was in my early 20s. Those involved getting up in the morning and riding down the beach or on an ATV counting the sea turtle tracks from the night before. We were basically out on the beach all day, and sometimes when I was out there, I would see these like big dark shapes swimming next to shore. I honestly didn't know what they were. And when I found out that they were actually manta rays, and I did some like Google searching and asking around, and found out that no one knew anything about manta rays in Florida. And I found that kind of mind-boggling, since they're this like big, very charismatic species. There's so many marine biologists in Florida. Like, why hasn't anyone studied them before? And I actually originally tried to study them in grad school. Just long story short, it didn't work out. And I've just had that project in the back of my head for years and years and years now. And after I left my job on the sailboats, I came back to Florida and took another job in environmental consulting, but it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. So I was just looking for a passion project. So I decided on my days off to go out and just see if I could even find manta rays, because I had never even explored that topic, if it was possible to locate them from a boat. Because a lot of people I talked to down here told going to be possible. So my boyfriend and I went out on our days off from work, and that was in 2016, and we found that we could find manta rays. I wouldn't say it's easily, but you could definitely find them with regularity. And since then, we've just been learning more and more interesting things about them.
That's pretty awesome. So you have a day job, and this is kind of like a passion project that you started.
That I'm currently trying to turn into a job.
I mean, I actually think I don't know, it's pretty awesome. It's like very entrepreneurial and like true passion in science.
You have to be passionate about it or else you wouldn't do it.
Right. So you have linked up with Marine Megafauna Foundation. How did that come about?
So Andrea Marshall is one of the founders of the Marine Megafauna Foundation. She's a leading manta expert around the world. She's the one who split the manta genus into 2 species about 10 years ago. We had actually been in touch back in grad school when I wanted to do this for a project. And she was very, very supportive and encouraging. But since it didn't work out, we lost touch for a little bit. But when I decided to start looking into the project again back in 2016, I contacted her and let her know that I was doing it. And she gave me some advice and was really excited by what we were finding. Because there is another research project on mantas in Florida up north, with the Georgia Aquarium is studying a seasonal aggregation there. But the problem with the northern project is you can't get in the water and do any in-water research because of the turbidity. So she was really excited to learn that there was a place in Florida where you could actually get in the water with the mantas and learn about the individuals, which is a typical data collection method for studying these animals.